everyone's on board, we should all be seeing Windows 2003 server with 3 clocks running on the desktop?
Yep.
Okay. So Time Machine's real easy. There's 4 different ways to set a virtual day. And if you've got a lot of systems, numerous Windows, Unix, or Linux machines, we have a web-based console that distributes clocks to all of them. Another way to set the clock, not used too much in testing, is to use our configuration file, and that's in our install directory. So when you put a virtual date for a user or group in the configuration file, it stays static until that's changed. And then if the machine reboots, the clock is still there. So whether it's an hour ahead of the real system time or a year ahead, and it could be frozen or what have you, that's always there. Third way to set virtual dates is, as a user, I can set my own virtual date using our Time Machine GUI. I can set my time zone. I can go to a specific date I want to test, and I click Apply. And now I'm, 3 days in the future. So this clock here in the middle, the blue square one, that's the clock running as the administrator account. The middle one is running under my user account, and the third one is running under a SQL Server account. So they're still the same. Now I can do something interesting here, and I'll set my clock speed to 100 times faster than the real system clock. And then if you see the clock, the blue clock for the administrator account is going by a whole lot faster than the other two. So this gives you the ability to have 2 different users on the same machine. If you're on a terminal server box or Citrix, Windows terminal server Citrix, each of those users could have different time zones, different virtual clocks in the past, in the future, frozen, n number hours, n number years ahead of the system, or you can set them to a specific date, like a leap year date, and freeze them in time, stage your application, and then advance the clock from there. So whichever you want to do.
Now, if I could just jump in with a question here. While this clock is running at 100 times the speed, for instance, if you have some tasks that are set to trigger off at, say, 10 o'clock in the morning,
if that task is running under the user or the group with a fast clock, their tasks are going to kick off.
Okay. And when they're doing when the actual task is executed, how will the time show up for the time of execution? Well, like, for instance, if it threw something out to the logs in Windows, would it show the time that it was triggered at, like, the fake time, or would it show the current actual time?
And the Windows event and system logs in the event viewer will show the real date and time.
Okay.
But if your system thinks it's 2 months in the future, it's the end of the month, whatever, 2 months in the future, and it writes to its own log. Internal to that log, it's going to show the virtual date. If it writes to a database, it's going to write the virtual date into the database.
Okay.
But the event logs and the application logs, we don't mess with the date and time on those for valid reasons.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, the file systems on the machines, we don't mess with the file system timestamps.
Right.
Because that causes a lot of problems on its own. And I've actually worked with a customer yesterday. They were moving the system clock back and forth, and then they were starting to use Time Machine, and they had an issue, and I was trying to figure out what the issue was, and I had them bring up their application log, and it was all over, and he said, "Oh, that's old stuff." So we had to go to change the view and delete the logs and start over. So we had the web console, which is for lots of machines. We had our configuration file. The TM user GUI, that's just for the user that's logged in. It doesn't set a virtual date for anyone else. And then I'll run a quick demo on SQL Server. So this machine also has a SQL Server tab running on it. And so I got the SQL Server account here is the clock on the right. The clock for my user account is in the middle. I'm not going to mess with that. And the administrator clock is going like crazy. So I'll just do this here. So I'm logged in as administrator. Now, the command line is the 4th way. And the command line is the best way generally used for testing. with the command line, you can integrate it into any automated test you have. Depending on whatever test step you have, you can put the command line in and have your batch files that tick off your testing, call that. If you do point and click record for testing, just do a point and click and record the clock change and put that into your automated suite. So it works both either way. So TM user reset is one of the commands here. That turns off every virtual clock on the machine. TM user -L lists all the virtual clocks.
Gotcha.
Okay, so I made a call to my Microsoft SQL Server, just a standard default, select get date. It's seeing the virtual date. It's seeing the system time. I'll go back up. That's the real system time. Now, on the command line, I'm going to do this call here, TM user -A for add, -U for the specifying the next argument's a user. I set the account to SQL, the SQL Server account, and I'm using a -X, month, day, hour, minute, and year. So this will set a virtual date to February 28th, 2019 for the SQL account. And once I hit enter, well, actually I already did. I made a call to the SQL Server, and it came back with the virtual date 2019. So
right.
SQL Server account is just a couple minutes before midnight, the year 2019.
Cool.
And I lost my administrator virtual clock because I did the reset. So click enable changes.
I'm just wondering, when you get your virtual user, and then you can also do one for SQL, is there a way to affect two at once so that you can make sure they're synced?
Sure.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, and that's essentially the same command here. If I wanted to do two users, I do -U SQL, and then a space, -U, and the name account for the other user.
Cool.
If they were both in the members of the same group, I can just do -G and then the group name.
Cool.
So I can add 20 users and 10 groups, or any combination of it, or just a user and just a group. And I can do any numbers of users and groups on the machine. You can have thousands of different virtual clocks going, and each of them can be in a different time zone and a different virtual date and time.
Cool. Quick question about some of our services. In our new version of our software, we're actually distributing across multiple servers. Is there a way to control the time on multiple machines at once?
Yes, there is. That was the first method I mentioned. Let me go to that right here. Come on. Oh, I had to exit the sharing desktop. So the Time Machine Web Console, you should see like a...
Yep. Yeah, I can see it.
All right. So there's a List Systems page here.
Gotcha. Yeah, I see it down below there.
Yeah, List Systems. You go to that page, and it allows you to enter this data. Right now, we're on the Set Virtual Time page, and then it uses the data you set in the other one. And here you just specify the years, absolute time, like month, day, hour, minute, or you can set a virtual clock that's n number years, n number days, n number hours, ahead, up, or behind using the plus or minus of the real system clock. You can set the speed to normal, which means it stays in cadence as an offset from the system time. You can set it so it's frozen in time, so the clock will never change for the users on the account. Or you can set a variable speed, which is the one that goes really, really fast.
Right.
And then you just click apply, whether you're doing a relative or absolute, and then a reset takes them all off of all the machines that are listed here.
Cool.
And for the Windows systems, we're pretty much assumed that no one, because you're all testing environments are all pretty much in the same domain. You run the back end of this is a .NET console on IIS, and so that's set up so the actions it takes triggers under the context of a domain admin. And the front end, you can configure the front end so only certain people can access the front end, and they don't have to be a member of the admin group, but maybe they're a member of a test group. So if they make the changes to here, and kind of like a sudo on Linux or Unix, it triggers the clock changes and then broadcasts them to all the Windows machines under the context of the user. So we don't have to, because it's domain authenticated, we don't have to record username or password for the Windows systems, because that's set up in the configuration of IIS.
Right.
Quick question here. How do I add machines to this grid? Like,
Oh, you would click on the List Systems page. This is not the live demo of it.
Okay.
I could bring it up on my machine,
oh, it's fine.
but it takes a while. So you click on that separate page here, and then it shows you this list with a different banner across the top where you type in the username, a machine, either IP address or the machine name. You type in all the user accounts. You do comma-separated users, comma-separated groups, or single users, grouping a user. So both of those are options in the top portion on the other page. And then you click Apply. If it's Unix or Linux, it's going to ask you for the username, password you want to execute the commands as on the remote machine. If it's Windows, authenticated domain, single sign-on, it just puts them in the list. You come back to this page, which is a set virtual time, push the date on, click Apply, and it pushes it out to all of them.
Neat.
Great.
That pretty much covers just about everything I was hoping it would. That's really good.
So I'll come back to here. So that was the web console, if you've got a number of machines. The command line, which is good for a lot of automated testing. The TM user GUI, which sets it for just a user account that's logged in, so you have to have a desktop login to see that. It doesn't work necessarily for the service unless you log in as the name the service is running under, and then you can do it, but then you have to leave your system up and going. Well, you can log back out. It'll stay. It'll stay until it's released. But that's kind of more of a hassle, especially with more machines. And the fourth way is the configuration file, which is just set like this. QA account, QA account gets X equals a specific date, and it's going 100 times slower than the real system clock. I can do SQL account, Y equals 5, which means it's 5 years ahead of the system clock, and it ticks forward in cadence with the system clock. So I'll set that, and my clock here jumped back to 2017 from 2019.
Cool.
And there's my TM user list. So these are command lines here, TM user list, and it shows you the SQL account has 2017 set for the virtual day. And I call the SQL server again, and this time it's telling me it's 2017, 5 years ahead of today. And that's about it. I mean, we can send you the manual, but it's real simple that way. Do the command line. If you have a number of machines, you may find it easier to use the web console. If you have automated testing, integrating the command line into it is probably the best way to go.
Yeah, that's probably how we'd probably do a fair bit of ours, I would imagine.
Yep.
And the fact that you're able to handle multiple machines at once, that'll take care of our distributed installs, so that's good.